Hi friends, and welcome to the Healthy Beyond 40 show. I'm Michelle, mama of 4 and military wife, and I'm passionate about helping women get healthy from the inside out so they can feel better and live their best life. Do you feel like you're struggling to lose weight and get in shape? If you're ready to develop healthier habits, exercise consistently, and lose weight sustainably, then you're in the right place. I combine my expertise from my doctorate in physical therapy to my experience as a health coach, personal trainer, and yoga teacher to bring you actionable steps for a healthy lifestyle. No magic pill here, so lace up those shoes and get moving. All right, so today I want to be talking about the power of tiny habits. So often we try to make things harder than what they are. So maybe you've had that moment where you've gone all in on something, maybe some diet plan or whatever it is. And then you burn out, it doesn't work, you don't stick to it, and you're not where you want to be. And the truth is that small, sometimes feeling like boring habits done consistently is what actually works. So sometimes we don't need a complete overhaul to get the results that we want. And sometimes when we try to do that complete overhaul, it's too much for our brain. It feels very unsafe if we're trying to change everything, and eventually we get burnt out and we have a lot of resistance. And then we end up feeling shameful and guilty, and we don't get where we want. So today I'm going to really be breaking down why we want these tiny habits, and then towards the end I'm going to give some very practical ideas of tiny habits that you can start with. And I encourage you that if you've been trying to get healthy on your own, or you're feeling stuck, you're not alone. Trying to figure things out for yourself can be really hard because most of us are not experts in health. So I offer a free coaching call where we can chat about your goals, what's getting in the way, and what simple steps you can take next. So if after this podcast, you're still not confident what to do, and you want to make sure that you're on the right path, then set up a free call with me. It's super laid back. There's no pressure, no sales pitch. Just some real support. So if you're ready to get a little help staying consistent and building habits that actually stick, let's talk. There's going to be a link in the description where you can sign up for that call. So if you're stuck, you don't have to do this alone anymore. So first, I really want to focus in and start to change our mindset around why tiny habits beat these big overhauls every time. So when we have a big extreme plan, they can be exciting. And sometimes initially we can feel like this big rush of motivation, but they don't last. And like I was saying in the intro, it doesn't feel safe to our brains to change so many things at once. Our brain really likes to do what we've always done. So even if something like isn't great for us, it feels safer to our brain to keep doing that. And so when we start to do something different, it's creating a new neural pathway, and that takes a lot more energy. And sometimes it can feel unsafe, even though it's a completely safe thing to do. And this safety, sometimes we're not consciously aware of that, but that's what happens subconsciously. So for some people, doing tiny habits just feels too small at first. They're like, this isn't going to work. So they don't even try it. But what happens when we actually stick to these small habits, we start to build that new neural network in our brain, and we start to develop a new habit that really fits and sticks into our life. So that's why when I'm working with people, and this is why, like, if you go to my website, you can't find a plan that you can order that's going to work for you, because really we need our health journey customized. So person A and person B aren't going to have the same habits. Like one person may need to work on increasing protein. Other person may not. One person may need to work on increasing their exercise, the other person not. One person may really need to focus on water, the other person may not. And the list goes on and on. So this is why you're probably not going to find a pre-made plan that works just for you. Because it needs to be the things that are going to make a difference for you, and that can be different for everybody. And everyone also has different challenges in their lives. So maybe someone has little kids, maybe someone's working long days. There can be all these things in our life that are going to affect the time and the way that we take care of ourselves. And so we need to sometimes modify those or change those to adapt to different things going on in our life. So instead of overhauling your whole diet and going keto or Whole30, like sometimes some of those things can be good, but we want this like drastic thing. We want to drastically overhaul it. We got all this motivation, but what if that person just had like a protein heavy breakfast every morning for 3 to 6 months instead of overhauling their whole diet? They're going to feel more confident. They're going to be able to stay consistent with that instead of like following this overhaul diet plan that they can't stick to for a few months and then being back in the same spot. But now they have a healthy habit that's completely easy and they don't even have to think about it anymore. And then they're able to move on to something else. So sometimes something that feels small can really make a big difference long term. And most of us don't really look long term when it comes to our health. So when we're thinking about changing how we're eating because we know maybe we need to eat healthier, a lot of us are thinking short term, like I want to lose weight or I want more energy. But we're not thinking long term, what would the benefit of this be? Like, why am I doing this? And another point I want to bring up here is sometimes learning isn't the problem, it's the actual doing it. So we are in a place where we have so much information. Like we can go to YouTube or podcasts or websites, books, all these places and get so much information. And there is sometimes that we need information, but sometimes we have more of that problem doing. So it's really not worth learning something. And I'm more relating this to health right now. It's not worth learning something if we're not going to implement it. So we could have all the tools in the world, but if we're not using them and implementing them, they're not doing anything for us. And I love learning. So I can definitely fall into this where I want to learn more and more, or I think I have to like completely understand something before I can implement it. But sometimes we don't need to learn more. We need to go back over what we've already learned and figure out how can I implement this in my life. And really being able to do that from a clear mindset. Like, is this something I actually need right now in my life? Being able to get quiet and get still and think, is this something I need? And this is something I do in coaching all the time with clients. Sometimes they'll like bring something to me that they want to try. And so we'll sort of talk through it. And they're able to come to a position of like, oh yeah, like that is not for me right now. I remember one time I had a client, she's like, one of my friends walks every day, even if it's like raining or snowing or whatever. So she was thinking that she needed to do this. And I was just able to have her sort of get quiet, take some breaths, and a simple question of like, is that you though? And she's like, no, it's not me. And I had that feeling because I had worked with her for a while. So she was able to clear that from her mind, that wasn't her. She's not going to be someone who walks every day no matter what the weather is. And she was able to move on to something that she should do instead of being stuck in this thing that you're like trying to do but really isn't for you. It's not necessarily like a bad thing or a good thing, but we have to be able to get that internal wisdom and block out those things that we don't need. So we really want to focus on, if I'm learning something, hearing something, can I pause and make sure it's for me? And how can I implement this? A lot of us already know what we should be doing. Maybe for someone it's move more. Maybe someone else it's eat more protein. Someone else needs to focus on their sleep. Someone else needs to drink more water. And the real magic happens when we find that one thing we need to be focusing on right now and implementing it. Not just learning more information. Not just learning more about it. So you may not need another book about healthy habits, but maybe you can just pick one thing. Maybe, for example, something simple, you're going to set your workout clothes the night before and then actually do that. And I do want to differentiate here between like learning and like encouraging or motivation. So sometimes we have where we're actually learning information. And sometimes I also like listening to people or having a coach for myself that also helps like encourage me and motivate me, helps to keep me on that right path. So I want you to think about that too. Do I actually need to learn more for myself, or do I need to hear more like encouraging, motivating things to just keep me on the path I'm in? I don't really need to absorb any more information, but I really need to stay a little more motivated while I'm starting this new habit. Because when we start a new habit, it can be really hard. It's new wiring in our brain that is not strong. There's a lot of resistance to it till that neural network in our brain becomes stronger. So sometimes we need a little bit more encouragement, motivation, maybe some accountability to get that habit down and get moving on the right path. And I also want to talk to, sometimes people think things are not working, and sometimes that's not really what's going on. So sometimes people will think like, I'm going for a walk every day, but it's not working. And then as we dig in more, well, it's a pretty short walk, and then there's a lot of days that they're not going for a walk. Or like, especially when it's something with nutrition, like, well, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are like totally off my eating. Or someone might like track their food just for a little bit and like, wow, I was actually like eating a lot more than I thought I was. So sometimes we think something is not working, but sometimes it's really lacking that consistency because most people quit way too soon. And success really comes when we stick something out for the long game to see those things add up. So going on a walk every day, you may not see results in a week or two. Sometimes you might have to really stick with that longer. And so that's anything we're doing with a small habit. You have to stick with it longer. And sometimes we have to get over that mindset because it sounds like drudgery to have to like try something for so long before you see results. But keep in mind that once you get a habit down, it becomes a habit and you don't even think about it. So if you had to take your health journey over the course of a whole year, and so let's say maybe over the course of this whole year, this person started eating a healthier breakfast, heavier in protein. They started doing strength training and yoga 3 to 5 times a week. They also started going for an intentional walk like 5 to 6 times a week. And they also started eating a lot more fiber. So bumping up that nutrient content, more fruits and vegetables. Now, if that person tries to do all of that right away, it's going to be too much. But imagine that person, I think that was like 4 different things I gave. If January, they just started with one thing. And then when they got to that 4th month, they added a second one. And then when they got to that 6th month, they added another one. And so throughout the year, they were slowly adding these new habits. So at the end of the year, they're doing all of these things and it feels pretty natural to them. They've become habits. That person is going to have success in their journey versus that person who tried to like dive in and do all the things at once and became overwhelmed and gave up because, life got in the way. Kids got sick. They got sick. There was a family emergency. And they didn't have these like habits built into them where they were easy enough to maintain even through some hardships in life. So we really have to think about consistency when it comes to habits. And also when we're thinking of consistency, so for example, take the example of someone who maybe they were only walking 2,000 or 3,000 steps a day. And then they started to walk 7,000 steps a day. And it really didn't seem like too much for a month, not too much of a difference. But over 6 months, guess how many steps they're walking extra? Over the whole year, like how many extra steps they're walking? Like all of those extra steps consistently added day in, day out make a big difference. All right. So now I want to go into some very practical tiny habits ideas that you can start with. So if you listened to this podcast, you probably know you have to find the thing that you need. And I encourage you to just pick one to start with. And it may not even be on this list, but maybe as I'm saying these, it will spark something else. So you really want to be able to pause after this podcast and ask yourself, like, what is that habit that I need right now in my life that I can really commit to? And what will that impact of that habit be for you? Like, why is it worth it? And how can I stay consistent with that habit? Because that consistency matters the most. So you want to really make sure you set yourself up for success by really picking a habit that's going to work for you and that you can stick with. And we don't want to make sure that we're just like doing a habit because I said, or doing a habit because you know your friend is. You have to pick something that works for you. All right, so one example here is maybe at dinner, you know that you tend to eat more than you need. So maybe at dinner, you are going to eat like a fourth of a less of what you normally do. Or maybe you're going to start with just starting to leave a few bites on your plate and not eat it all. Maybe when you go out to restaurants, you're going to skip like the fries, the chips, you know, those side things that extra, and you're just going to have like the sandwich or whatever, the main part of the entree that you're going to have. Maybe at breakfast, you're going to focus more on a heavy protein breakfast. So for most people, it helps to start the day with a good amount of protein and not a ton of carbs, because American breakfast, it's like so carb heavy. So I'm not saying you guys can't have carbs, but when we start with bagels and pancakes and cereal, all these things are very carb heavy, but when we can shift that focus to a protein heavy, so we're not spiking our blood sugar in the morning, can be really helpful. So think like eggs, unsweetened Greek yogurt, a protein shake that isn't super sweet. Maybe another habit could be starting with movement. So maybe adding in 10 or 20 minutes of a walk every day, or even in the area of movement, some people who are working, it might be like getting up from your desk a few times throughout the day and walking for 5 minutes. Maybe if you need to focus on sleep, maybe getting off your phone an hour before bedtime. Or maybe for sleep, you know, having a quick journal where you're writing down any of your thoughts each day so you can clear your mind. Maybe your habit, you know, you need to start with water. So maybe it's starting your day off with a big glass of water. Or for people who drink caffeine a lot, like having a glass of water before you can have any caffeine. So obviously you're not going to do all these habits. Maybe a couple sort of hit with you that you think you can do, but just start with one. So you really want to individualize this for you. Also, another habit that I do is like most mornings I'm having my Organifi green juice. So I have it with unsweetened almond milk, the green juice, and some protein powder. So this is like a simple habit that makes me feel better. And I started using this when we moved a couple years ago because I noticed the stress was going up. And then as I'm heading into perimenopause. So the Organifi green juice has a clinical dose of ashwagandha, which really helps to balance cortisol. It can help with stress. It's an adaptogen herb. And then there's other superfoods that are also in the green juice. So that can be a simple habit to add. So if that's something you want to check out, check the description down below and use the code HEALTHY20. It's going to save you 20%. And you guys can use that coupon code anytime you order. And at least when I've ordered, it has combined with other like sales or promotions they have going on too. And I've been using it for a couple of years now. All right. So remember that you guys don't need to be perfect. You just have to keep showing up. Because when we stop showing up, we stop making progress. So big changes can happen through these small, repeatable actions. So it's not a 30-day sprint. It's not like this 2 or 3 month diet. So what are we doing for the long term? And it starts with those small, repeatable actions that you can do day in and day out that you get so comfortable with that they become easy, and then you can add more things. And you guys are capable of building something amazing for yourself. You're the only one who's going to take care of you. So you probably don't have someone in your life telling you you should eat healthier, you should exercise more, you should move your body, you should handle stress in a better way. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to put your needs for your health, your body, and your mind as a top priority. Because when you are stronger, mentally, physically, and you're healthy, then you can pour out into your family. Then you can pour out into your work and all these other people in your life. So you have to think of yourself first, and not in a selfish way. But I think so often, a lot of us women give and give and give to the people around us. But first, we really have to take care of ourselves and our health. And then we give from this abundance that we have when we know how to take care of ourselves and our health. When we know how to take care of our emotions and our hurts. Because we've taken the time to do that. When we know how to work on our mindset, we're able to do so much more. But sometimes it feels like, oh, I don't want to take that time to like work on my mindset and work through some of these emotions. But there's so much freedom once we do that. All right, friends, that is all I have for you today. I hope you guys keep moving and you have a wonderful week. Also know that I have a Facebook group called Healthy Beyond 40. Feel free to post in that group. So you guys can post your goals, your intentions for the weeks, the habits. You can ask questions. You can share recipes. I'll have that link in the description too. I would love to hear from you guys in that group. What's going on for you guys? All right, friends, have a good week.